understand Islamophobia and find more constructive way to address this scourge. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Permanent Mission of Turkey, of course, his ambassador, and OIC Special Envoy, Passatede, Special Envoy for supporting this event, and of course, my dear colleague, the Ambassador of Pakistan, and all the people that are taking part in this meeting. We have addressed this morning, and we all agree that we meet today in a moment when Islamophobia has become increasingly embedded not only in the social discourse, but also in some contexts in the political narrative and in institutional practices. So we are witnessing is not merely a rise in individual prejudices, but a different pattern of exclusion that carries significant consequences for peace, security, and social cohesion. This morning, commemoration of International Day to Combat Islamophobia reminded us that anti-Muslim hatred does not emerge in a vacuum. It is fueled by misinformation, by political rhetoric that exploits fear, and by digital environment where the humanizing narrative can spread unchecked. UN experts have warned of alarming levels of discrimination and attack against Muslims, a reality that demands a more coordinated and systemic response. The General Assembly Resolution 76-254 and 78-264 place clear responsibility on all states. They reaffirm that freedom of religion or belief, freedom of expression, and the prohibition of incitement to hatred are not competing principles. They are mutually reinforcing obligations. Yes, too often these obligations are applied inconsistently or selectively, challenging what is really the cancer and UN system double standard. See, we don't are able to build trust and credibility. When Secretary General appointed me as the first UN Special Envoy to combat Islamophobia, he underscored that it is now a global political challenge, one that affects multilateral relations, domestic policy making, and the daily life of communities who feel increasingly targeted and marginalized. My mandate reflects the urgency of addressing this phenomenon not only through moral appeals, but through concrete framework and sustained political engagement. For that reason, this afternoon discussion, I think, will help and should help all of us to advance that goal. Our first panel is going to explore the delicate balance between freedom of expression and the prohibition of incitement, a topic often at the heart of political tension, particularly in digital spaces where harmful content circulates rapidly. The Rabat Plan of Action provides guidance, but implementation requires courage and clarity. Our second panel highlights national and regional strategies that demonstrate how principles can be translated into practice. From human rights monitoring to inclusive education policy, these efforts show that combating Islamophobia is possible when there is the political will. Excellencies, my dear friend, Islamophobia is not only a human rights issue, it's a test of our collective commitment to equality, justice, and the values of the United Nations. I spoke in the morning, so I will eat there to allow more time for the insight of the distinguished speakers who are joining us today. And I look forward to today's substantial discussion and to strengthen our cooperation in the months ahead. Thank you. And now, if you allow me, I will give the floor to my dear friend, His Excellency Mr. Ahmad, Ambassador Permanent Representative for Turkey to the United Nations. Ahmed, you have the floor.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, distinguished panelists, I will be brief. First, I am grateful to co-organizers, namely Alliance of Civilizations, Special Envoy Mr. Moratinos, and OIC, Permanent Observer Mission, Mr. Hamid Opeleyaru. And I am honored to support this event and the event, high-level event in the GA hall in the morning, and to support it in every possible way. Certainly, indeed, I chaired the event commemoration in the GA hall. I'm sorry some countries couldn't take the floor because of the time problem. I hope they will take the opportunity to take the floor here to express their valuable opinions. As chair of the OIC, we prioritize Islamophobia to be in our agenda because day by day, Islamophobia has increasingly moved beyond isolated acts of intolerance and now manifests itself through systematic exclusion, hate speech, even violence in both physical and digital spaces. Of course, Islamophobia is not only a challenge for Muslim communities, it is a broader societal problem which undermines social cohesion, weakens democratic values, and threatens the peaceful coexistence. Certainly, many factors contributed to it over decades, but recently, of course, these escalations involving Iran, US, and Israel, but more than that, the Palestinian problem and atrocities by Israel. Unfortunately, social media is extremely abused to provoke Islamophobic sentiments. Lately, in a widely shared message on social media platform X, a politician literally called for more Islamophobia. This message alone was viewed more than 9 million times and received over 100,000 likes. So it shows us that we should combine our powers, our energy to combat this phenomena, which is threatening our values. So I, as a diplomat, of course, I attach importance to the collaboration between the UN, OSCE, Organization for Security in Europe, Security and Cooperation in Europe, Organization on Islamic Cooperation, and also Council of Europe. They are also doing some works, valuable works on this. That's why I value today the presence of distinguished panelists, which one of them is Special Envoy for OIC on Islamophobia, Ambassador Paçacı, and the other one, Mrs. Evren Dağdelen Akgün, Special Envoy for OSCE, Chair on Islamophobia. Dear colleagues, as Turkish diplomats, maybe to provoke some thoughts by panelists, as Turkish diplomats, we are seeing this is coming. This was coming over the decades in European metropoles, capitals, by the rise of far right and by the political rhetoric, unjustified political rhetoric against Muslim communities there. And as Ambassador Asim said in the morning session that prejudices starts by words. Islamophobia started by words. But now we have the opportunity, we have the obligation to counter it in any way we can. Let me give you an example. When I was a member of parliament and member in many parliamentary assemblies, in our visits or in our meetings with some European colleagues, when we raised such concerns about Islamophobia, some of them responded by saying that this Islamic group committed this crime, the other Al-Qaeda this crime, as an excuse to Islamophobic statements and sentiments. I replied them, yes, we condemn them, we blame them, we never agree with such acts of brutality. It is not compatible with Islam. But let me ask you a question. All believers of other religions committed such crimes in the history. Colonization, slavery. Almost all Muslim countries colonized by believers of other nations. But no Muslim tried or dared to burn the Holy Bible or Torah. Nobody blamed Jesus or Christianity for these acts. Ku Klux Klan is a new one. They claim that they are perpetrating this unbelief of Christianity, but it is not. So when I gave them this example, they somehow seem to agree. But still, negative rhetoric is prevailing, unfortunately, especially in social media. I stop here, and I look forward to listening to valuable panelists, and if I have questions, I may ask later. Thank you.
Sorry. I ask Her Excellency Mr. Asim Iftikhar Ahmad, Ambassador Permanent Representative of Pakistan, to take the floor.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to Under Secretary General Mr. Moratinos, the UN Special Envoy to combat Islamophobia, the UN Alliance of Civilizations, and Ambassador Ahmad Yildiz and the Permanent Mission of Turkey for organizing this discussion, and the thematic panels to mark the International Day to Combat Islamophobia. And let me also join you in welcoming all the distinguished panelists, and we look forward to this conversation. Colleagues, Islamophobia today is not simply prejudice against a religion. It is the systematic stigmatization of a people, the denigration of an identity, and the normalization of hostility towards a community of nearly 2 billion human beings. Across many parts of the world, Islamophobia has moved beyond isolated acts of intolerance and has become embedded in narratives, institutions, and public discourse. Stereotypes portraying Muslims as inherently suspect or incompatible with modern societies shape perceptions and policies alike. Alarmingly, such rhetoric has entered mainstream political discourse, where the fear of Muslims is exploited for electoral gains and identity is weaponized to divide societies. These narratives translate into institutional discrimination, with Muslims facing barriers in employment, unequal treatment in education, and profiling in law enforcement and immigration practices. Islamophobia also manifests through attacks on visible expressions of faith. Mosques are vandalized, the Quran desecrated, and Muslim women targeted because of their attire. In many places, we have witnessed the destruction and erasure of Muslim cultural and religious heritage, an assault on history and the identity of entire communities. The digital age has further intensified these challenges as online platforms amplify hatred, promote disinformation, conspiracy theories, and incitement against Muslims to spread across borders with unprecedented speed. The consequences extend far beyond Muslims themselves. Islamophobia fractures societies, fuels xenophobia and racism, and erodes the trust that sustains pluralistic communities, thus weakening the moral foundations of society for all. Excellencies, if Islamophobia is evolving in such scale and complexity, our response must also be equally principled, resolute, and forward-looking. In this regard, first, the international community must ensure the full implementation of international human rights law and relevant resolutions addressing Islamophobia, including prohibiting and criminalizing advocacy of religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence. Secondly, we must strengthen national legal and institutional frameworks to prevent and address hate crimes and discrimination on the basis of religion and ensure accountability for perpetrators. Third, The UN, the member states, and technology companies must work together to establish robust regulatory frameworks and effective oversight mechanisms to curb online hate speech, disinformation, and incitement to violence. Fourth, educational curriculum should promote respect for diversity, cultural literacy, and interfaith understanding, enabling younger generations to reject the narratives of exclusion. Fifth, the international community must promote sustained intercultural and interreligious dialogue, which remains essential for building trust between communities and reaffirming the shared values that unite our humanity. Finally, the international community must move beyond expressions of concern to collective and decisive actions against Islamophobia through stronger international cooperation, partnerships, and sharing of best practices. We look forward to a comprehensive action plan to combat Islamophobia that will translate our shared commitments into concrete actions. At its core, the fight against Islamophobia is not about defending one religion alone. It is about defending the universal principle reflected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the UN Charter that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights without distinction of religion or belief. A world that protects the dignity of every faith protects the dignity of humanity itself. And a world that respects religious diversity strengthens the foundations of peace. So let us commit to that objective, for that is the future we must choose to build together. I'm sure we'll have conversation on some of these topics in the panelists, and we look forward to that conversation. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Iftikhar, Ahmad, for your intervention, for addressing 5 recommendations that, of course, we are going to take care of that even today in the conversation, but in the UN plan of combating Islamophobia that we are working with my team, and hopefully we will present to all member states very soon. And we have this engagement not just to have a declaratory policy, but to move to action and to result-oriented objective, all of us together. So now I will give the floor to Her Excellency Mr. Mehmet Pachachi, Ambassador Special Envoy, the Secretary General of the Organization Islamic Cooperation on Combating Islamophobia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to participate in this high-level event organized under the leadership of the United Nations Special Envoy to Combat Islamophobia, His Excellency High Commissioner Miguel Angel Moratinos, and I also express my gratitude to His Excellency Ahmed Yildiz, Permanent Representative of Turkey to the UN. And to contribute this important discussion on the changing dynamics of Islamophobia today and its implications on peaceful, cohesive, and just societies. We gather today to mark the International Day to Combat Islamophobia, a day established by United Nations General Assembly in 2022 through Resolution 76254, introduced by Pakistan on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The designation of this day reflects the growing recognition by international community that anti-Muslim hatred and discrimination have become a serious and persistent global challenge. This day also commemorates the tragic terrorist attack against 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, in 2019, in which 51 innocent worshippers lost their lives and dozens more were injured. The victims of this horrific act remind us that Islamophobia is not merely a matter of prejudice or rhetoric. It can lead to devastating violence and profound human suffering. Today, Islamophobia manifests itself in increasing complex and evolving ways